Hello. We're going to do that awkward thing of sharing a lectern, so please try not to worry too much about our awkward loitering that we're going to do for each other in between. But lucky for you today, we're going to talk to you about how boring the world is. So thank you for coming to hear that, and please strap yourselves in. I'd like to start by actually telling you a little bit about my day. Like many of you, I woke up in my pretty average house next to everybody else's average house. Hopped on the train, went to my nondescript city next to all the other nondescript cities. And on the train, I thought I'd catch you up with the latest psychological thriller, bestseller, no doubt. And then typically the tube was down, got myself a cab for the last bit of the ride, in my usual kind of wind tunnel familiar car, and stopped off for a cup of the usual at the usual, admired the brickwork wall and wondered why I'd paid so much money for some frothy milk. And then, being a strategist, my mind started to wander. And I was thinking, if I was a movie star, how would I enter Madfest? Like, it's got to be with an explosion. And I think in my head, I was going to be the centre bottom, but in reality, I'm probably more of a top right. But either way, hopefully you get that. You're not meant to laugh at that bit. And then I thought I could go back to the office for a status meeting, or do you know what? There'll be a prequel or a sequel of something banal that I've probably seen before on. And if I'm really lucky, they'll advertise it with loads of faces and superheroes on the front as well. So I went to do that. And it kind of made me wonder a little bit, is like, bloomin' heck, am I really, really boring? And the answer to that is yes. But I also kind of go, maybe it's not just me. We're surrounded by everything that feels like it's optimized with an inch of its depth to be the same. We're surrounded with sameness, and we all use it in agencies as language. We talk about the sea of sameness. But most of us are contributing it to ourselves as well. And I think we've forgotten how fun being different is. And I think the world is boring because it is so samey. And we might wear the Nirvana t-shirts, but I think we've forgotten Cobain's stint on actually how good different is. Different is interesting, different's fun, it's exciting, it's noteworthy. And I don't just mean this as, I work at a creative agency. Ooh, difference is really cool. Different is really important as well, especially if you're a brand. And we've seen that if you look at any different metric for brand contribution to business or customer value, difference pulls hard. You're right, this is the photo to take. This is the one that you should follow. So within your own customers, the more difference you have with them versus competitors, the greater the customer value. The biggest lever brands can pull on business and on stock value is standing out as being different as well. But we don't do it. And those of you who know BBH, obviously our philosophy is around difference and finding difference. And one thing I think we found is it's become harder and harder to make people find their difference, what we call zagging. And I think a lot of the time, everybody goes, yeah, zagging sounds really good, we want to be different, but they don't really. So what we've tried to do is go, well, if we don't want to zag, let's look at the other side. What would zigging look like? What does the same look like? What does familiarity look like? And then we can start talking about cracking homogeneity. So we've launched a new tool recently, which we call the Zig Index. It's AI-powered, obviously with a bit of strat skills on top and some good PowerPoint skills too. But what it does is it lets you codify a category really, really quickly. And I think the scary thing about it is it shows you how similar the brands within it are. It will tell you the boring pallid colours that you get in there. It will tell you that most people who do automotive advertising want you to know there's a front and a back of a car. It will tell you what the messages are and what the key stories are, which actually sound a lot like political manifestos most of the time. And then it'll even pop out a little ad at the end for you. So it's a brilliant way to get a snapshot of the danger that you could fall into and be as boring as me. It also works for chewing gum. We've all seen the relationships with freshness and wanting the right connection. It could be fun for world beers. We've all seen the lovely, refreshing pints where a load of lads get together and they look like they're having a really nice time in a very cultural way. We've all seen like the cleaning products ones, although I do love AI for this because for some reason it's kind of got this Germageddon stance of man versus germs, which I actually think is quite a nice way to go. It looks a bit like the Simpsons trip to Japan with the ad that comes out, but either way you can see what the key themes are. It works for finance. How many times have we seen that house emerge in one way or another? And interestingly, it starts to work for media channels too. I love this. We had a little run at it for GB News, and the colours are kind of obvious and the free speech undertones you'd expect to get. But what I love is it's picked up on a little bit of that anger and that sentiment there as well. And finally, ultimately, it can work for thematics and culture as well. As a fan of spaghetti westerns, if you want to make one, here's what you do. this is the key to making the same spaghetti western that would match anybody else. And finally, and timely, it can work for political parties. And some of this stuff is obvious, but what's interesting is the messaging and the stories actually come from the last 30 years of political manifestos. And for the last 30 years, we're still talking about stronger change, brighter future, which sounds a little bit like one of those automotive ads we looked at before. And so it makes you wonder, kind of, why are we still feeding on this? Why are we adding to the familiar? Why are we still promoting Sea of Sameness? And it might be because we think we've got enough money that we can kind of spend the way out. It might be because we're not brave in the way we used to be. It might be most of our jobs are kind of, actually my job's not to get it wrong. But we'd like to give an example of how we think you can find your way through that and show what the difference is with Burger King.
So burgers. I was very, very lucky over 6 years ago to get the opportunity to work on this globally recognized brand with over 98% awareness in the UK. We were in the top 3 restaurant brands on brand awareness. We still are. And I guess it was brilliant for me to chat to people and say, I'm going to go and work for Burger King. And everyone told me, oh, they're definitely the better burger. It's brilliant. It's great. It's a proper meal. It's brilliant. So obviously thinking I was onto a winner. I was onto a winner, but it was going to take a while. Within a few weeks of joining, I asked our new neighbours, BBH, who conveniently are just around the corner, if they'd do a little bit of work for us and help us understand what the actual perception was in the UK of the Burger King brand. We had over 500 restaurants, and with 98% brand awareness, you can imagine I'm thinking this is going to be good. The warts and all report that came back from them told a very different story. Yes, we were winning in quality perceptions. Yes, customers had lots of good things to say about us, but it also highlighted a lot of big challenges that we had to face. We had become more known for short-term discounting. $1.99 nuggets and fries was plastered all over the TV ads. We were inadvertently and rather frustratingly selling more nuggets for them, the competition, than we were ourselves. And we hadn't actually put Whopper on TV in over 10 years. The real kicker was the social media listening and the number of times we saw the message, does Burger King still exist in the UK? 500 restaurants. So to compound these challenges, we didn't and still don't have the size or media spend of our competitors. Naturally, that hampers our share of voice. We couldn't rely on the same category tried and tested ideas, tried and tested formulas to drive visits to BK. Yes, we could talk about quality and new products and great value offers, like the rest of them, like the best of them, but stretching that media spend to communicate across so many different levels was just impossible. And of course, there is some really great work in the category, but when you apply the Zig Index from BBH, you can see that there are many cliches as well. Lots of falling, fresh, abundant ingredients, plenty of burger porn, we're all guilty of that. There was lots to work with, but it was becoming very predictable, and a fast food value message was becoming quite recognizable and quite familiar. I think based on our position in the market and the circumstance we had in terms of media budget and a collective ambition as quite a small and agile team to do something different, we had to find a point to zag, and we had to find a way to play a different game in a different field that was going to drive some cut-through for us. Enter Whopper. Whopper was the product that we've had on the menu since 1954. It's never changed. It's just a Whopper, an actual Whopper. It's our most differentiated brand asset. So when it came to sitting in a room with the guys from BBH and saying, what are the assets that Burger King has to work with, this was the one that we kept coming back to. We needed to make the Whopper famous in culture, and while it was talked about in many global campaigns, it was never the central piece of communication for any of the markets. It was always about sales driving through new product news, LTOs, etc., but it wasn't Whopper. But we wanted to make it all about Whopper, and the focus allowed us to do 3 things. Own quality and satisfaction in a really authentic and different way. We obviously leaned into our size. It's called Whopper for a reason. Leverage a distinctive asset, the Whopper epitomized the very best of BK. It's flame grilled, made to order your way. And we needed to talk about it again. And finally, it allowed us to play in culture. How you eat it, where you eat it, other types of Whoppers. So rather than meal deals and more $1.99 nuggets and fries, fleeting trials here and there, we needed to talk about one thing and do it really well. So I'm going to share some of the work we did over the years, starting with the Whopper mandate. So on the 17th of April, 2019, this was our first foray into talking about Whopper, and we went big as we could with the budget we had. We basically created a Whopper mandate. We took out a page in the newspaper and we said, today we are only serving Whoppers. If you want a hamburger, we'll serve you a Whopper. If you want a chicken royale, we're serving you a Whopper. Because we're so proud of this product, this is all we're going to serve. Like I said, Whopper hadn't been on TV in over 10 years, but it was all we talked about for that year. Nothing else, no other new product news, it was all about Whopper. Having talked about Whopper for all of 2019, we decided to reveal something in December 2019. We had a secret, and we'd been holding it back, and we revealed this Whopper of a secret right at the end of the year. Celebrating size, we revealed that for every Whopper photo shoot that had taken place that year, there was a Big Mac behind us. You just couldn't see it. You couldn't see it, but we knew, and our friends quite literally had our back for the whole of 2019. So we celebrated that at the end of the year, and it was a nice way to end, given what was about to come in 2020. Another piece of work that we're equally as proud of is no smoke without fire. Lots of conspiracy theories around how we get the grill lines on our burgers, where it comes from. It actually is real fire in every single Burger King. And to do that, we talked about the smoke. There's no smoke without fire, and effectively use media and VR to drive people to a restaurant with smoke trails, which was a really fun campaign to work on. This work goes back to 2020. And yes, that is tiny temper on a Whopper, should I say. Tiny, as he's now known. But if you were kind of 90s and noughties, you'll know him as Tiny Temper. So we put a tiny temper on a Whopper. So we're in the middle of the pandemic. It's 2020. Yes, the world has slightly opened. I think we were all doing Eat Out to help out or something like that. I'm not sure we were helping anyone. But Tiny Temper was releasing a new single, and it was conveniently called Whopper. So what better? We couldn't let that pass. What better way to give him a stage and a live performance opportunity than to perform Whopper on a Whopper? And that is what we did. So using VR and obviously his permission, he came down to a studio, all very safe with kind of COVID rules, and filmed the song and performed it on a Whopper. So there was no Glastonbury, no live performances, but we wanted to do something fun and entertaining, and it absolutely cut through. And this one, quite topical at the moment. Funnily enough, this campaign came back to life a couple of weeks ago. It was featured in The Guardian and a couple of others. We didn't pay anything for it, but it's quite nice when a campaign resurfaces 5 years later. But good timing for the week that's in it. Whopper, of course, represents something large, but it also lends its name very nicely to a gross or blatant lie, and we couldn't let that go. In about 24 hours, we agreed this idea on WhatsApp. I think we spent less than 10K on the idea, and we parked a double-decker bus in front of Westminster, leaning into Whopper as a lie and having a little bit of fun with another infamous lie on the side of a bus in the lead up to an election. It became UK top trending topic on Twitter. It achieved coverage in over 75 countries. People are still talking about it. I'm still talking about it. I promise I won't talk about it again after today. But we love this campaign, and it drove so much talkability and did exactly what we needed it to do, which was to zag. It was doing something different with a fast food product that you wouldn't normally expect. On to our most recent work. Foodfillment is the campaign that we released earlier this year with the guys at BBH. It celebrates that warm, fuzzy feeling of total food satisfaction that you can only get when you go to a Burger King. And as always, there is room to keep talking about our hero product and finding an unusual and creative way to zag. in a typical product advert. So I'm going to share this ad with you, and then I'm going to share some of the rest of our work. But effectively, we continue to zag, and we need to zag to drive cut-through, talkability, and reach customers in a really unique and memorable way.
Wow, that's
The best feeling in the world.
Is it though? Is it really better than food ferment? That warm, fuzzy feeling of total food satisfaction, like finishing the last bite of a flame-grilled Whopper from Burger King.
He's right.
okay. See you later.
Ta-ta.
Whopper. That's my favorite.
You know that smoky, tasty flavour you get in a Whopper?
Yeah.
They get it from the internet on the computer.
Cheeseburger, please.
Don't come back.
I just have hamburgers. Hamburgers? I'll tell you what, I just don't feel one.
Pumpkin?
What are you listening to?
Oh, it's a really great song. It's called
Whopper, 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 Junior, Double, Triple, Whopper, Flame Grill, taste with perfect towers.
So before we get kicked off, we'd like to end with a plea. If you really want to stop things being so boring, or stop being so samey, please, please be different and find your way to Zag. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie and Simon. Fantastic presentation, and I think you did a really great job of illustrating how much sameness there is in the world. Other than using Zag, which is obviously a great tool that BBH have, what advice would you give to a room of people that create those kind of ads all day long to actually make sure that they do not just kind of put out stuff that doesn't differentiate?
I mean, we were talking about, oh, God, no one can hear me, sorry. We were actually talking about this earlier. And I think sometimes when I've met people before and, you know, kind of, we sometimes get questions around how, you know, we get away with doing what we do at Burger King, and, you know, sometimes we can be a little bit pokey and a bit provocative and, you know, not always intentionally. But it's not, we were talking about this earlier on, it's not about that. It's not about being disruptive for disruptive's sake, but it is about really leaning into your strengths and owning those, and then being different. Being different doesn't have to mean be controversial or political or have fun at the competition. It's what is right for your brand, and I think that's the difference. So being different is not just looking at your own category and saying, what is everyone doing? It's looking at other categories. We look at what people are doing in fashion brands and retail brands, and that's where we learn.
Yeah, great. And we've talked a lot today about AI in different sessions, and obviously the tool that you guys have created uses AI slightly. In terms of keeping up with topicality and responding quickly, do you see more advantages for AI to do that, or is it always going to come down to, like the tweet this morning, actually humans just being on the moment and actually responding in a second?
Yeah, I think I'm certainly no expert on AI. I probably need to go to all the talks today. I would suggest that, you need someone who really understands the brand and knows your customer to be able to respond in that way and be kind of brave and agile and all of those things. However, maybe you're freeing up marketers' time to do more of that stuff. Right. If AI is supporting in the kind of, the other areas of the role that require a lot of time and, and be that, visuals or ad apps or, I think there are benefits, but I'm not sure if it necessarily helps on that kind of level of agility.
It doesn't necessarily replace the human, right?
Yeah,
Great.
I can do the boring stuff, yeah.
And Simon, was there anything you wanted to add on the AI thing from a BBH perspective?
I think that spot on. I think the most important bit is AI won't tell you what your difference is or whatever model or tactics you use, and that's the most important bit. You need to know what makes you different, and you need to push that out with bravery in a way that creates fame. AI will help you find out where the gaps are and where the white space is. That's brilliant, but really find that difference. And then I think, as Katie said, you also need that spirit as well, because it's easy to go, we can be different, but not if you're going to take 3 years to maybe dabble and maybe sign things off. Just have a bit more confidence, and I think that has to be a human thing, not an AI thing.
Great points. Well, I think that's a really great place to leave it. So put your hands together for Katie and Simon, please.